Now through the end of April, First Family Mortgage can help families with credit scores in the 500s. If your credit score's in the 500s, don't miss your chance to save thousands. Call now before we lose this program forever. 425-0105 or 1fmc.com.
Can I go over to the voter fraud for a second?
Yeah, if you want to weigh in on the voter fraud, we were talking about that a little bit earlier today. The issue, multiple counties have a higher number of voters than people who are of eligible age. I wrote a column for AL.com about it, and everyone responded, well, where's the proof? And I talked to Hans von Spakovsky.
Well, let me share some information.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was first elected in 1982 to the legislature back when I was 28 years old. The Democrats rigged the voting machines in my election such that out of about 44 or 45 voting machines, 11 would register votes for everybody but Mo Brooks, okay? 25% of the voting machines would, so I got 0 votes in some of the boxes. We still were able to win, remarkably, to become the only elected Republican in the northern third of the state of Alabama to the legislature. But these folks who say voter fraud does not occur, they're just not paying attention. I'll use another example. I saw an instance in which in a very close Senate race in 1983, a special election, we had 100 votes stolen in a Madison County voting location. Then in an election over in DeKalb County that I was involved in as a lawyer in 1984, very close superintendent race in DeKalb County. In one box, the Democrat candidate for superintendent got more votes than Ronald Reagan, plus Walter Mondale, the 2 presidential candidates, plus the Republican candidate for superintendent, all put together. And that one box tipped the difference between the Republican winning a DeKalb superintendent of education race and a Democrat winning the superintendent's race. All the judiciary back then was Democrat, so we took that case to circuit court, and the Democrat judge, who had complete discretion to order that the box be just opened and the ballots recounted, discretion, not an obligation, discretion, refused to do it. Okay, now think about that. That never happens, that a local candidate gets more votes than both presidential candidates put together, plus that guy's opponent. But that happened. And then over the years, we've had plenty of instances in the state of Alabama where there has been voter fraud and felony convictions over the last 20 to 30 years. Now, I've been in this business since 1982, so I sometimes have been personally involved in it. I've been the victim of it, and I've seen it happen. And typically, the kind of voter fraud that takes place is dealing with absentee ballots, where one person will vote 50 or 100 times just filling out absentee ballots for names of people that probably shouldn't be on the voter rolls.
Well, I'm going to keep this little piece of audio. I'm going to have Jason pull that out, and when next time someone says there's no such thing as voter fraud, I will just replay that piece of audio of things you just said there. You mentioned the absentee ballot. That voter ID doesn't do anything about that. Well,
it should, because you ought to have the driver's license or a photo ID before you can get the absentee ballot.
Don't you?
You ought to have some proof of who you are.
So you think they should have to show their voter ID at the, say, the courthouse before they send them the ballot?
Yeah, well, you could mail a copy of it in if that's the process, or when you go to the courthouse to get your absentee ballot, you can show your ID then, just like you would when you go vote. But the greatest amount of voter fraud in Alabama has been associated with absentee ballots, where people just grab a bunch of them and fill them out, and then get them submitted, and they count. Now, again, we have had some convictions in the past in federal court when you had a Justice Department that was more nonpartisan. Right now, unfortunately, the FBI and the Justice Department probably have their hands tied behind their back to a certain degree by our Attorney General and President, and they're not able to treat everybody on an equal basis. But this has been a common occurrence in the state of Alabama, and I'll tell you, in my personal opinion, we have 2 U.S. senators who were elected because of voter fraud. Now, that's an opinion on my part, but we've got 2 senators who were elected where the first count had the Republican winning that United States Senate seat, and then the second count, a recount, had the Republican winning those Senate seats, And then it took the Democrats doing a third count with all the kind of shenanigans that my experience has shown that they do to actually win elections, one from the state of Washington and one from the state of Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. So one of those is Al Franken. Very interesting.
Well, I mean, think about that. You have two counts and the Republican wins, but the Democrats just keep having counts. They control the election processes in these states, and they just keep having recounts until they can figure out a way to muster up the votes to elect the Democrat.